Welcome. This is Devotionables. These are brief devotions for busy people. Today we're going to look at Psalm 64. And in Psalm 64, David cries out to God to give him relief and safety from his enemies. So David he's saying how he has enemies who are seeking to attack him unjustly. He says they're slandering him. He says that they're plotting to hurt him in secret ways. And he says that there's people don't know what other men are doing to him. But as he gets through the psalm, he says that God does know, and God will answer, and God will protect him and take care of him. God will use their slanderous words against them. He will protect David. And then he says that all of mankind that sees God's work in this will fear him for that. And the righteous and the just will actually rejoice in God's justice in this. So David he's crying out to God because he doesn't want, he's afraid of these evil people to attacking him. And he cries out that God will have to protect him from that because, he can't trust people. The people are developing these secret plans, but God's protection can extend to him as well. Like, he is not outside of that. Like, God will turn their evil against them, and God will take care of David, and then the world will see that and rejoice in that. And we see that in David's life, I think. We don't have an exact scene that this is from in David's life, but we know that he was on the run from King Saul. He had many enemies who were after him, and in many ways, those would have been unjust things trying to harm him. So David cries out for this, and we also know that within David's life that God did protect him from that. That the evil men that were after him didn't kill him, didn't harm him. He was able to be king, be God's godly king. So that's really the first thing we can see with that. The second, and probably the most important way we can see this played out, is to see this played out in the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. He was a righteous, just person, but there were unjust, evil men who were plotting to destroy him. They slandered him. They said that he was a blasphemer and said that he was working with demons. They even plotted at night to have him killed, just as David sort of describes in this psalm. And they actually killed Jesus, but God vindicated Jesus. He vindicated Jesus through the resurrection. With the resurrection, we see that Jesus was the Son of God, that everything he taught and everything he said was true about him. And in that way, he was vindicated as the righteous and the just person and God himself. And then for us as believers, we also cry out to God for relief and for salvation. Regardless of what the suffering we deal with looks like, we still cry out to God. There's different types of suffering we might deal with. We might be dealing with suffering that comes from our own sin. We might be dealing with suffering that comes from just living in a sinful, fallen world. And we could face suffering that comes because we follow Jesus, people that want to harm us because we follow Jesus. Regardless of what that suffering is from or why it's falling on us, God is the only real refuge from that. The only place for us to find salvation is in God himself. Just like David, he knows the only place that he can find salvation and safety is in God. And God is good and gracious to give that salvation. He's so gracious that even his grace even extends beyond the persecuted, but to the persecutor. The evil people who sought out David's life, the evil people who sought out Jesus's life, if they were to have put their faith in Jesus and repented of those sins, they too would find salvation. That's how good and gracious God is. And for us as believers and as people today, that's what we have to fall back on. That regardless of where we're at, we seek refuge in God himself. And he offers grace and protection, and he offers eternal salvation through Jesus.